He has been denied again. Two efforts by former President Trump to delay his upcoming hush money trial in New York have been shot down within the last 24 hours. On Monday, Team Trump asked for a delay so the trial venue could be moved out of Manhattan. That appeal was denied in just 2 hours. And today, Trump asked for a stay in order to challenge a partial gag order imposed last week by Judge Juan Merchan. An appeals court judge took all of 12 minutes to reject that one. Joining me now is Christy Greenberg, a former federal prosecutor and former deputy chief of the criminal division for the Southern District of New York. Christy, thank you for joining me. You know, this may be kind of like an obvious observation, but how has this trial just stayed on track? What has Judge Merchan done that could be, I don't know, useful to other judges in handling their own cases, or just what sets this case apart insofar as it's really, I mean, full steam ahead?
Well, I think in one circumstance, it's actually a very discrete set of facts. And every motion that comes up, every attempt that Donald Trump's team tries to throw a motion his way, he rules on them very, very quickly. He disposes of them quickly. He doesn't just sit on his hands like we've seen in Florida, right? Like in New York, he is moving things along. And it's easy because so many of these motions are frivolous. When you have a frivolous motion, it should be that much easier to dispose of it.
But it's not just Merchan, too. The appeals court judge dismisses this thing in 12 minutes, right? There seems to be a uniform New York judicial stance that, like, Trump's attempts here are bogus, and it is widely accepted that they are bogus.
Right. And, I mean, this should take 12 minutes, right? This is, he has a First Amendment right to attack the family members of the court and of the district attorney. I mean, that's such a laughable argument. You should be laughed out of court if you're going to get up and make that argument.
I mean, having said that, there are some legitimate areas of tension between the prosecution and the defense. One of them is around a subpoena that the defense, Trump's team, would like to serve to Mark Pomerantz. The DA's office does not want, they want to squash the subpoena, basically. Pomerantz is a real person of interest here. And can you talk to me about why and how he might be useful to the Trump side of things?
So I actually don't think he will be as useful as they would like him to be. So a few days ago, Trump's team served a subpoena without notifying Alvin Bragg's team or even asking for authorization from the court, which is what a defendant has to do in a criminal case, to serve a subpoena on a third party, and served it just a few days ago and is asking for a number of things. And ultimately, Mark Pomerantz, when he was running this before Alvin Bragg came, he was the special assistant district attorney running this investigation. Presumably he has a lot of information, a lot of emails, a lot of memos that he wrote in his view of this prosecution. But all of that was turned over to the DA when he resigned, quite some time ago. And as the DA points out in their papers, look, we've talked to him. We've said, do you have anything on your personal devices? Do you have anything still that we don't already have? And in their opposition to this subpoena, they lay out, look, here are all the efforts we made to get things from him. Here's his affirmation saying he gave us everything, and there's nothing that he has that you don't already have. So, again, I think this subpoena is not going anywhere for the Trump team. Yes.
You talked about the jury. Jury questionnaires went out today. There are no questions about, who people voted for in the 2020 election, but there are questions about news media consumption. Yes, MSNBC is on the questionnaire, and whether or not they consider themselves supporters of or have belonged to the QAnon movement or Antifa. How unusual are these questions in the grand scheme of things? And do you feel like it's sufficient evidence to find out what channel someone watches and whether or not that gives an accurate window into their political leanings?
So those questions about where you consume your news media are pretty standard in any criminal trial. Any trial I had, we asked those kinds of questions. These are interesting because do you also follow Truth Social? Have you read Michael Cohen's book or listened to his podcast? Have you read Mark Pomerantz's book? So given how much is out there about these facts already, it does make it somewhat unique and different from other criminal cases. But, I think the judge was right to say, who who you voted for, what political party you are affiliated with, whether you have donated. Those are questions that really don't bear on whether or not you have a clear bias. You could be a Republican and still listen to the evidence, put aside any views of who you think the president should be, and be fair and impartial. Yet that is a possibility, and he's allowing for that in his questionnaire.
Yeah, and indeed, there is evidence of people who are diehard Trump supporters or left their MAGA hats in their car to return a verdict that was not did not benefit Donald Trump. So we know the past could be precedent.
Yeah, and we saw that in the E. Jean Carroll case. One of the jurors had identified as somebody who listened to more right-wing, media consumption, having right-wing media consumption, and that was unanimous jury verdict in E. Jean Carroll's favor. So it is possible.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.